Okay, the purpose of this video is to talk to you about the waiting room, what it is and how you can use it. First of all, the waiting room is not an actual place. It's not like a breakout room. A lot of people get this. No, it's not a breakout room. It's not a location that you can go to and have a video session. Now, during a meeting, I like to turn the waiting room on and off depending on what I'm doing. When I first come into my class and I'm greeting students and students are kind of coming in randomly, I don't want to sit there and allow for the first 3-4 minutes of class. I just turn the waiting room off temporarily. So what I do is I come down to this little security shield and I can uncheck the waiting room, meaning turn the waiting room off. Now, boom, I just unchecked it and it says you have disabled the waiting room. What that means is anyone else who enters the waiting room will not, or anyone else who clicks on my link will avoid the waiting room and come directly into my meeting. So at the beginning of class, I turn it off. And then once I've kind of gotten, checked my attendance and I know people are here, from that point forward, I've already taken attendance. I want to now allow people in one at a time, so I will turn it back on. Again, come down to security, enable the waiting room, and it turns it back on. Notice, though, that when I turned it off, my Chromebook waiting in the waiting room didn't get admitted. I still would have had to have clicked admit for my Chromebook to have, or anyone else waiting in the waiting room. You would also have to hit admit to let them in. So you can turn off and on the waiting room on the fly in the middle of a meeting, off and on as it suits your needs. I'm going to drag in this window for a second from my other monitor. Okay, these are my settings. When I come down to settings, and I'm going to hold down the control key and the F key on my keyboard so I get this little search, and I want to check out the waiting room. And this is where, now notice, by the way, that's a little search thing that you can use on any web page, and you can see the word waiting is in 7 different places. So here's waiting all over the waiting room stuff. That's a way to not search an entire long web page, because this is a long web page with tons of stuff on it. So Control F, waiting, whoops, spell it right. Here's the waiting room. So anyway, this should be turned on, okay? Everyone will go into the waiting room. Options. You can do a few other options. I haven't played with any of these. It looks like you might be able to, users not in your account, and not part of your allowed domains. Okay, I've never turned that on, so we can try that. Customizing the waiting room, you can put your own picture that you want, and you can also kind of change the message that's there. Again, I kind of played with that, but I didn't put too much effort into that. But just to be advised, that's what the waiting room is. So what the waiting room is, and I'm gonna join this meeting right now on my Chromebook, which I have right next to me. I always enter my meetings on my Chromebook as well. So when I come into the meeting, because of the way it's set right now, I'm gonna join with video on my Chromebook. So now I went right into the meeting. Gotta mute myself. I went right into the meeting with no waiting room. But let me leave the meeting. And so that is because I currently have, under this little security shield, I have the waiting room turned off. I do not have it enabled, so I'm going to click on Enable. Now I have the waiting room. So now back on my Chromebook, I try to join the meeting again. This time, as I join, I will get sort of forced into this waiting room, which simply means if you looked at my Chromebook right now, it's just a white screen. Please wait. The meeting host will let you in. Everyone's seen that by now. And then myself as the host, I can choose to admit someone if I want to do that. Now I've admitted my Chromebook. So it's connecting, and now my Chromebook over here, not my main monitor, my Chromebook is in this meeting. I always like to point out to people as teachers, sometimes you might have a student that is not behaving the way you want, and obviously you can mute them, you can turn their video off, but if they're really behaving badly, you can force someone into the waiting room. The way you do that is under participants. If you don't have it opened, let me close my chat also just to get that out of the way. So under participants, you can find the participant who's acting in a way you don't want them to act, and you want to just kind of put them in timeout, and you can click on more, and you can force them into the waiting room. Now they're back in the waiting room. My Chromebook, if you were to see it right now, is back at that screen that says the host will let you in, and you can yet kind of use the waiting room as sort of a timeout if you need to do that. That is the end of this video.